hours per year looking for misplaced information. If you take an $80,000 a year executive, that is a $6,000 bottom line cost. That doesn't take into account the missed opportunities and all those kinds of things. So if you just look at it from a pure standpoint of cost, you can't afford not to do it anymore.
Okay, Barbara Hemphill, the book is called Taming the Office Tiger, The Complete Guide to Getting Organized at Work. And NBC hopes we'll read it.
Thank you.
So we'll get better organized.
Here knew you. Our Bill Ritter is here this morning to give us some help on getting organized at work. And as you can see, and we're all about to see, it's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult.
You have to know your tips.
And we're going to give them to you.
All right.
Good morning. If you don't think being disorganized is a waste of time, consider this. The average executive spends about 150 hours a year looking for stuff in the office. So if you could use, another month or so of time for work or for pleasure, get organized. That's what we did for Joe Kelly.
Aha! This was Joe Kelly, a disorganized, stressed-out attorney from Atlanta. But today, he's a new man.
This is Joe Kelly's new office. His desk is clean, his inbox organized and neat. It's a far cry from what his office looked like just 24 hours ago, when his office looked like this, a mess, completely disorganized. Now, Joe did not do this by himself. He had some help, some professional help.
Meet Barbara Hemphill, a professional organizer. She says Joe's disorganization is typical and not surprising.
We're getting more paper than we've ever had. Statistics show 600 million pages a day generated by computer printers alone.
Most of this paper ends up strewn on top of desks and spilling out of inboxes.
Let's throw that away.
Okay.
Barbara starts with removing the junk on Joe's desk, a process she calls the art of wastebasketry.
People are afraid to throw things away. And a lot of what I teach in the art of wastebasketry is how to make that decision. In my experience, in the typical in basket, 40% of it can go straight into the trash.
Now, to make your desk look like this instead of this, your wastebasket has to go from this to this. And to figure out what you should throw out, Hemphill says, ask yourself these questions. Does it impact me financially or legally? Does it affect a client or a project? Is it difficult to get another copy?
But my favorite one is, what's the worst possible thing that would happen if I didn't have this piece of paper? If you can live with the results, throw it away.
This needs immediate action.
If you decide to keep a piece of paper, the next step is to file it.
One of the reasons that a desktop becomes overly cluttered is that because people don't know how to file properly. They're afraid to file it because if they file it, they won't remember it.
Now, to help people remember, Hemphill suggests coming up with a keyword. Ask yourself, if I wanted this information again, what word would I think of first? The answer becomes the name of your file. Then make a list of the names of those files, sort of a table of contents, and make sure you have easy access to the files you're currently working on. Finally, if your current filing system just doesn't work, then start over.
We're going to clean all this out, and you'll have to clean all this out.
Unfortunately for Joe, the clutter in his life doesn't end with his desk. Like many of us, it follows him home in his briefcase.
The briefcase often becomes a depository for postponed decisions. The same decisions that you have trouble with at the desk can cause you trouble in the briefcase.
Now, the first step in transforming your messy briefcase into an efficient mini desk is to make sure your briefcase fits your needs. If you use pockets and compartments, then your briefcase should have them. Then create some traveling files to keep yourself organized. Finally, make sure you have the right tools for your desk away from home, like a little stapler, paper clips, even thank you notes. Once all the clutter has a home, getting organized requires one last important step: prioritizing.
Prioritizing what we do is extremely important, because I think many of us live under the myth that if we just got organized, we'd be able to do it all. And I think for many people, that's truly not the case anymore.
Hemphill suggests making a master to-do list at the end of every day, so you'll be ready to go the next morning. Also, assign deadlines. That way you'll know which task you have to finish first. And finally, pick out the most important task and make sure you do it. Now, all this does take some work, but if you do it and if you stick to it, you'll be free of clutter, just like Joe.
I feel great. There's a place for everything. Everything has its place.
And if you think that's not enough, he has even more tips. Let's start with the phone.
All right, phone. Good phone tips. Always have a pad of paper by the phone. Write down what you're going to say before you make the call. Experts say a planned business call takes about 7 minutes. Unplanned, 12 minutes. That's 5 minutes a call. You make 20 calls a day. Do the math. About an hour and a half to save. Also, if you're going to talk to a person that loves to talk, call before lunch, before quitting time. Perfect excuse to get out of it.
Good. All right. Now, a lot of people have Rolodexes, but you say we don't use them properly.
We don't. This is a small Rolodex, a little too small. It does not hold business cards like the big ones do. You avoid desk drawers like this one. Look, we all have them. Business cards.
I'm a really organized person, and I even have a drawer like that.
I do too. But you know what? If you get a big Rolodex, don't get the one with the lid.
Why?
Because it's a breeding ground for little junk notes like this. This belongs to our producer, Julie Mazer. Julie, you're not going to like this. You don't need those notes. You also
don't worry, I'll get them back, Julie.
No, you won't. You also don't need magazines that have been piled up more than 3 months. Experts say if you haven't read them in 3 months, recycle them, you're not going to read them.
I'm really good at that. And all the incoming stuff, like you come in one day and you say, oh my God, the inbox.
Very important. Only 4% experts say of an inbox really is useful information. The best inbox is this one. My family calls it Junkostroika. Get rid of the stuff, recycle it, whatever. This is not hard to do. Integrate it into your life like you do exercise. It takes about 20 minutes a day.
Be able to let go of all that stuff if it isn't really important.
20 minutes a day. That's all you need to do it.
Okay, I'm still telling you, by the end of this week, I'm taking a picture of Charlie's office. Tomorrow, as we continue our series, New Year, New You, Bill will have more tips on how to get organized, this time at home. Coming up next.
Spilling out. Are there things stuffed in the back of the closet you haven't seen for years? Barbara Hemphill is a professional organizer, and she has some tips on getting rid of the closet and paper clutter. Barbara, good to see you. Good morning.
Nice to be here, Matt.
Let's define clutter, though, because one person's clutter could be another person's collection of good stuff.
Oh, that's absolutely right. My definition of clutter is anything you keep that's not supportive of your environment. For example, if your closet's full of things you haven't worn in years and you can't get in today's dry cleaning, or if your dining room table is so cluttered with paper and you can't eat there.
But if we're going to clean out, for example, we're going to start with a closet over here in a second. If we're going to clean out, do we simply reorganize and make it look neater, or are you suggesting we throw stuff out?
There's a difference between cleaning and organizing, and certainly getting rid of things is a place to start in organizing.
Let's take a look at this closet here. Now, you've got what probably is a typical hall closet or bedroom closet for someone. I'd look at this right now and say this isn't too bad.
Well, it all depends on what your definition is, whether or not it's supportive of your. There are 3 things that you really want to ask yourself. Does it fit? Do I use it? And how does it make me feel?
All right, let's start with does it fit? Because if you look at this closet, there are a lot of people who fluctuate weight-wise, and they may say, you know what, I'm going to get skinny enough to wear that one day.
Absolutely. But the issue is, if you lose 10 pounds, are you really going to go and want to go back and wear that jacket, or are you going to want to celebrate and go out and buy a new one?
All right, do I use it? That would apply more to junk things than clothes, right?
Well, or exercise equipment. You know, I really need to...
That's a gut buster, isn't it?
That's right. You know, it's been around a while. If you haven't used it in a year, you're probably not going to. Or shoes. You know, this is shoes, perfectly good shoe, but you know what? It's uncomfortable. How long do you want to be uncomfortable? Or then there's that issue of gifts. You know, somebody gives you a gift and you really like them, but the gift doesn't really fit in. So if you're not going to use it again, it didn't come with strings attached.
Well, wait a second. So you're saying it's okay, you shouldn't have the guilt about throwing away a gift. A lot of people save those things just in case the person who gave it to them comes over at some time. And if you can place it on the coffee table.
And if they're special enough, you really want to go to that trouble, that's fine. If you have plenty of room, this is not an issue. But if you can't get in what you want to use today because of that, you know, and a lot of people have trouble getting rid of things. And one of the things I found, Matt, is that if you have very conveniently located a box with the lid off, because if the lid's on, then you pile other things on top of it. So when you take it out of the closet and you say, you know what, this really isn't going to work, you can put it in there. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there's a women's correctional institution there, and I found that they need clothes for when women go out on job interviews. It makes me feel very good to put this in that box and know that it's helping somebody else.
So give it away to a good cause, a charity or something like that.
Right.
Let's talk about paper clutter. 80% of the paper that comes into our house in the mail or that we bring into the house is waste.
Absolutely. We never use it. Now, that doesn't mean you throw out 80% because you don't know what the 20% is you're going to use. So you want to make decisions. But the first issue, Matt, that's really important is to have a paper management center. And that means a place that you go to open the mail. The most important thing about it is that it be a place you like to be.
So you don't have to go out of your way in the house to do it. It's something that will be in a place you're going to be anyway.
Right. And when you open the mail, you immediately, notice here we've got trays, you immediately sort the mail into whose mail is it.
And then each person goes through his or her tray. You say now the system that you take on from here is called the FAT system.
That's
F-A-T.
right.
What's F stand for?
File, and then A is act, and T is toss. In my book, Taming the Paper Tiger, I talk about trimming the fat from your life. Clutter is postponed decisions. There are only 3 decisions you can make about a piece of paper. You can file it away because you may need it in the future.
These are legal documents and things like that.
Insurance, tax records, things like that. You need to take action on it. This is a bill I need to pay, a phone call I need to make, a letter I need to write, or you can simply throw it away. It's an advertisement for something you don't need or want.
Is there a time that we should set aside to reduce clutter? Should we take on the whole apartment in one day and just say, you know what, this is going to be the weekend project. By the time Sunday comes along, the house will look better, or do we do it in increments?
Well, I think in reality, most of us have to do it in increments. I think the important thing is that you do have to spend time. It doesn't do it itself. And organizing is something that you build into what you do anyway. So when you pick out this piece of mail, instead of postponing the decision and saying, I'll decide later, immediately ask yourself, I've got 3 choices. I can file it, I can take action on it, or I can throw it. So here's an example. This is about my dental insurance policy. There's nothing I need to do about that, but I want to keep it, so I'm going to put it in a filing system called dental information.
Okay.
Here's an example. This is a bill to pay.
And that one goes in the act file.
That goes in the action file under bill.
We get the idea.
Here's a thank you note. Read it and then throw it away.
Okay, Barbara Hemphill, thanks very much. Good advice.
Thank you very much.
Our tax returns, we already discussed.
Millions of us, like Steve and Maggie Rosenberg, live amidst paper and boxes of more paper, just in case.
It's just like when you go on a trip and you pack just in case. Well, it's the same thing. You do just in case, holding on to your paper.
But all that paper piles up quickly. So Kiplinger's Barbara Hemphill, creator of Taming the Paper Tiger, has developed a way to dig out from under. It's called the FAT system.
FAT, file, act, toss. File it away. There's no action required on it right now. Take action on it. This is a project I'm working on now, something I want to do. Or simply toss it. I don't really need it. Suppose we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, this is a project that I'm working on right now. So this becomes what I call an action file. The reference files are where you put the things that you're going to need at some time in the future.
And this is the circular file that so many of us are afraid to use. Hemphill says ask yourself 3 simple questions about whether the item's worth saving at all. Does it require any action on your part? Is this the only copy that exists anywhere? And is the info in it recent enough? If your answer is no, toss it.
Research shows that 80% of what we keep, we never use. And the cost of keeping all this information, especially when we can't fund what we want, is very high.
This is Kiplinger's Personal Finance Report. When Maggie Rosenberg goes on the road with her children's music show, she comes back with piles of disorganized boxes. Reorganizing for the next road show would be less of a nightmare if she used a computer. And a program like Kiplinger's Taming the Paper Tiger, created by Barbara Hemphill, is geared to doing just that.
You simply attach a number to something, whether that number is a file folder or a box, and then you go to the computer and tell the computer what that number means.
Why a number? Because, says Hemphill, there are too many words for the same information.
The same file could be called automobile, car, Chrysler, transportation, or vehicle. And if I call it automobile the first time and then 6 weeks later I look for it and it's transportation, or somebody else is looking for it and they look for vehicle, they're not going to find it. This scares people because they say, oh, if I just opened up my file drawer and all these numbers, that wouldn't mean anything. Well, right in the front of the file is a printed out list of the names of the files in alphabetical order.
A good system for Maggie, with all the props and contacts she needs to maintain. Or for her husband Steve and his financial planning business. Still, the Rosenbergs have stayed away from computers. They don't like the thought of being paperless. But saving paper is not the purpose of computers. It's to save you time and effort.
It's about improving the quality of your life and your work, because it's very stressful when you can't find what you want.
This is Kiplinger's personal finance report.
She says you can figure out what to keep, what to toss, and how to find it exactly when you need it. Meredith and Barbara are standing by in Meredith's dressing room. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Joy. I'm not sure I appreciate that little setup. Thanks so much. Well, this is National Get Organized Week, and the truth is, I am a slob, and Barbara, you found that out for yourself. But how do you get organized when you just don't have it in you? Is it possible to get somebody organized?
Well, you cannot organize anybody else, Meredith, but everybody. I've been a professional organizer for 20 years, and everybody who wants to can, in fact, do it if they have the right tools and they practice it and build it in as a way of life. Organizing is not something you do and it's done, but it's a way of doing things.
See, that's the problem. You have to keep doing it every day. You have to learn the tricks.
Absolutely, but make it easy to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult. We're not talking about being a neat freak, Meredith. This is not about a place for everything and everything in its place, but it's a matter of making it easy to do and reducing our stress.
Let me show you and the audience what my office looked like just a few days ago before you got your hands on it, okay? So why don't we go ahead in? We'll be able to look up on that monitor while the audience is seeing it. Well, how would you describe it?
Well, what you're seeing here is that clutter is postponed decisions, and there are lots of postponed decisions. There are piles of things. And one of the realities of our life, both in our bathrooms, our kitchens, our living rooms, our family rooms, is that there's lots of stuff that accumulates around.
And now look what you've done. You've totally cleaned it up. And I mean, it looks good, but is it really organized as opposed to just throwing out some clutter?
Well, that's really a good question, Meredith, is it really organized? And the answer is organization. Clutter's postponed decisions. And what we've done here is created a place to put individual things. There are some tips that you're going to find helpful that we're using here. The first tip is that there are only 3 things you can do: file, act, and toss.
Explain that.
Well, file, we've created some files. File could be file in a storage place. You'll notice here that we've labeled things. Action, things that you actually need to do. For example, here, take home is an example. Or one of my favorites here, calls expected. I have a phone call to make to you, you're not there, I leave a message for you to call me back, and the $64,000 question is, where do I put that piece of paper? That's in calls
And I used to just paste it onto my mirror.
That's
what
exactly
I used to do.
another way you can do that. It's perfectly okay. Organization is not something that you have to do in a particular way. There are lots of ways to do it. Everybody does something right.
Now, what other tips do you have? You have one that's called the art of wastebasketry.
Right. Research shows, Meredith, that 80% of what we keep we never use. And when we organized this area, one of the things we did in the first shot, you noticed there were lots of mugs there. Now we've gotten rid of the ones you really didn't need and identified a specific purpose for each one. This one's candy. This one's business cards.
But what do I just decide in my head, okay, I'm just going to toss these things? Is that part of the philosophy? You got to know to just get rid of?
Well, the art of wastebasketry question that's my favorite is, what's the worst possible thing that would happen if I didn't have this? And play it out. The worst thing is I'd have to buy it again. That would cost me $2. I'll do it. The worst thing would happen is I couldn't find it again, therefore I'm going to keep it. It's not a moral issue.
How about the next one you have is half of any job is having the right tool.
Absolutely. I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and that's one of the things that my dad taught me. Here's an example. We talked about this tool. Notice these file folders have little pockets in them. So when you buy
things don't fall out?
That's right. It's having the right tool. Here's an example. This says take home, things you get here at the studio.
But you know, if I don't know how to organize, how do I know what tools to buy in the first place? Part of my problem is I don't even know how to get started with the tools.
Well, you want to put like things together by what it is that you want to do with them. These are bills I need to pay. This is memorabilia that I want to keep for the future. Here's exercise information that I want. Here's warranties for things. So there's a principle of putting like things together.
So that is the final clue, really. Create a filing system for yourself.
Exactly. Filing things away, and file could be generic in terms of a larger container that puts things where it is that you want.
Now, I want to know what you did with my dead flowers and my bottles of beer that I notice are missing, Barbara, all right? I'm not going to press it, but...
We're never going to tell, Meredith.
And how long do you realistically think that I can keep it this way?
You can keep it there if you will periodically review the things. And I think that's what's really important about this, is that organizing is an ongoing process and something you can do if you're motivated to do it and if you practice at it, like any other skill.
Thank you, Barbara, very much. And Joy, all I have to say is my dressing room is nicer than your dressing room.
Yeah, because now yours looks like a hospital. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Barbara. The book is called Taming the Paper Tiger at Home. Let's hope Meredith's dressing room stays this way. We'll be right back.
It's been neglected. This is where we organize all our bills, the inbox, and then it goes to the sorting box. I've got receipts for my business that I need to have cataloged. I've got coupons, and I just have a mess. I need help to change my slothful ways.
Barbara Hemphill.
Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Come
nice
on
to
in.
meet you.
You're here to help me.
I am indeed. Well, one of the things that I've learned through the years is that clutters postpone decisions, and you're the decision maker. You can decide to file, act, or toss. All right, so I'm going to create an action file. This is report card. I'm going to put that in reference file. Some of these are bills that have been paid and some that need to be paid, it looks like.
Right.
Most people save software boxes and it's not necessary. So is this a personal receipt or a business receipt?
It's personal receipt.
That's going to be reference 6. All right, these are just envelopes for recycling. So that's office supplies, right? Wake Forest 1998 phone book. Do we have a newer one than that?
We don't need that. This is great. Now we can eat dinner here tonight.
I can't promise you that it's always going to look like this because life is messy. But what we've done here is we have created a place for everything. So even though you work with it in a messy way, doing the daily business of life, you can quickly recover when you want to have company for dinner. And my definition of organizing is how quickly can you recover, and now you can do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much.
Barbara Hemphill joins us right now. Oh my, whose dining room was that? Raise your hand. or kitchen or living room. I was always taught that order is the first law of heaven. You got to have everything in order. Why is it so hard for us to organize and keep order?
Well, it's a really complex issue, but part of it has to do with the emotions of it. All that stuff represents our hopes, our dreams, our fears, our intentions.
Yes.
And in order to deal with all of that stuff, we have to come to grips with the fact that we cannot do everything we want to. And sometimes we have to give up the good to get the best.
Yeah. Now, you know what was very interesting there for me? It was painful for me to watch her throw things in the trash.
Well, we actually, let me stop there.
That was painful.
We were not throwing, a lot of that was not going into the trash. A lot of that was a giveaway. And one of the things that I've learned is that for people who have trouble letting go, often there are people who have experienced a loss.
Yes.
And one of the things that makes it easier to let go is to find somebody else who needs it more than you do. And then it's easy. Because basically, slothful people are sometimes responsible people. It's like, this cost a lot of money. This would be good. This might be useful someday. But if you're keeping something and not using it that someone else could use more, then that's not good.
Now, the thing, looking at that film, the thing that was interesting to me and that I know I've experienced, when it gets to be so much until it's overwhelming.
Right.
And then you say, I just can't do anything at all.
Well, one of the things that Nanette needed desperately, which everyone needs, is you need a place in your home to be the management center for the business of life. You can't run a business without an office. You can't run life without an office. And she didn't have one set up there, so that was where we started. And it has to be a place you like to be.
So this is where you would put everything that you need to run your life.
That's right.
So it doesn't have to be a whole room.
No,
it could
absolutely.
Be a box,
I've done an office and a closet. I've done a
Right.
very small front hug closet where we put in the things that they needed to do their business of life.
Okay, that's good. Ladies, if you want to know whether or not you've got sloth issues, pick up your purse and look in there. You'll get a clue, okay? If you want to find out more about how to clear the clutter in your home, Barbara Hemphill's book, Taming Your Paper Tiger at Home, is available in bookstores right now. What's our next deadly sin? You better stick around and find out. We'll be back in a minute.
Maverick of the morning. She is Barbara Hemphill, founder and CEO of the Hemphill Productivity Institute and author of Taming the Paper Tiger. Barbara, this is a very common problem, particularly here at CNN-FN. Dirty, busy desks. How do we deal with the problem? How do we solve it?
Well, Alan, the big issue is that clutter is postponed decisions. When your desk piles up, it's because there's a decision that hasn't been made, and we've developed a system we call the FAT system.